So a group of North Carolina voters claims the U.S. Constitution disqualifies Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn from running again. They have filed their challenge with the State Board of Elections, claiming that Cawthorn failed to comply with the 14th Amendment, which states no one can serve in Congress who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same.
Now, the challenge says Cawthorn's actions create reasonable suspicion or belief that he helped facilitate the insurrection, including a speech supporting Trump at the January 6th rally, other comments, and information in published reports. Now, Cawthorn's office told the Associated Press activists are twisting the 14th Amendment for political gain. Here to discuss is Ron Fine, legal director of Free Speech for People, an election and campaign finance reform group that's backing this challenge against Cawthorn. Ron, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start just with what your case is here. The speech that day and other information. Explain that other information you believe supports the engagement in insurrection or rebellion that you say that Cawthorn engaged in.
Thanks for having me on and giving me an opportunity to explain that issue. The definition of engaging in an insurrection is more than just the people who stormed the Capitol building and attacked the police and tried to physically disrupt the vote. Engaging in an insurrection can include broader participation. And what the evidence points to in the case of Representative Cawthorn, it's not just that he told his supporters to threaten their congressman and say, "I'm coming after you." It's not just that he spoke at that demonstration that led directly into the attack on the Capitol, but the information indicates that he was involved in helping to plan the events of January 6th and knew that violence was substantially likely to result. And when you put that all together, that creates the reasonable suspicion, which is the legal standard in North Carolina, and it shifts the burden to him to prove that he is qualified for office.
Well, that's different. I mean, that is what you're suggesting is different. And the House Select Committee that's investigating all of this, I don't think has reached its findings on that yet in terms of who was involved in the planning, though we have heard from time to time that there were other congressmen who they're also looking at. For instance, Congressman Paul Gosar, who may have had some contact with the mob, the leaders of the mob before the insurrection. Are you looking at other people as well?
We are definitely planning to file a series of these challenges. I don't want to talk about specific members just yet, but Representative Cawthorn is the first, but he will not be the last.
Let me pull that thread that you left at the end of your last answer about shifting the burden, and something that our legal analyst Harry Littman put us on to in North Carolina law. If I think I've got the right one, Chapter 163, Article 127, Section 5, subsection A, which reads, "The burden of proof shall be upon the candidate who must show by a preponderance of the evidence of the record as a whole that he or she is qualified to be a candidate for the office," which means you can bring the accusation, the allegation here through the lawsuit, but it's now on Cawthorn to say that, no, I was not part of an insurrection. Do I have that right?
That is how the burden shifting works in North Carolina. Of course, the evidence that we've put forth is enough that unless Cawthorn wants to come and try and present his case, which he's certainly entitled to do, the State Board of Elections will be compelled to rule that he is disqualified.
Let me pull that other thread that you left dangling out there in one of your answers. And what other evidence have you seen that he was involved in the planning of the event?
Well, the initial evidence includes the fact that he was reported by a group of the organizers who were involved in organizing the events, the pre-attack demonstration, which led to the march on the Capitol, which of course led to the violent attack, that he and his team were among a fairly small group of members of Congress who were in close communication with the planners of the events that day. That was reported in Rolling Stone, of course, and the Select Committee has listed Cawthorn as among a small group of congressmen for whom they've sent orders to social media and telephone companies to preserve records of the communications. I think in this case, our action may get ahead of where the January 6th Select Committee is, but Cawthorn does seem to be based on the publicly available evidence and public reports in that smaller group that was involved, not just in speaking at the demonstration, but in helping to plan it.
All right. Ron Fine, thank you so much. And I should say we reached out to Congressman Cawthorn's office for a response. We did not receive a reply. Thank you, Ron.